Hi, welcome back to Grandma's Corner 2020, where I am going to be teaching you how to make kombucha. So kombucha is a couple of week process to make, and the first part of this requires 3 ingredients: sugar, some sort of black tea. It doesn't have to be organic, or you can also use green tea, and water. So I have water boiling right now in my pot, and if it wasn't so hot, I'd pick it up and show you. And that is going to dissolve the sugar. So to get started for the very beginning of kombucha, you need 14 cups of water, and you want that to boil. And then you're going to add to that 1 cup of sugar, any kind of sugar, refined sugar. This happens to be turbinado sugar. It could be monk fruit. It could be organic, whatever kind of sugar. I don't think the little bacteria in there really is going to be picky about the sugar that it's going to eat. And your 8 tea bags. So these tea bags come with the little paper attached to it, which I've taken off already. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to cut off the threads, because we don't need to have those floating around in there when they're cooking. All right, so my water has boiled, so I'm going to turn that off. But before I start doing this process, I want you to see what I have in my refrigerator right now. So you can see I've got 3, 6, 7 bottles of kombucha that I have already put up. And that's about when I decide it's time to make another batch. Because I figure that I'm probably going to drink this in the next couple of weeks. And this whole process for me is going to probably take about 3 to 4 weeks. So I have to make sure that I pace this out. Now, when you have a bottle of kombucha that's already made, you're going to see sediment at the bottom. I already actually shook that one up. This one you can see the sediment. And you want to make sure that you mix this up before you open it, because that's all the good bacteria that's in there that you want to be drinking. And you should hear a pop. And you see how it's fizzing? Whoa! So you know that this kombucha worked because it fermented and created all these bubbles. Ooh, and that's nice and tangy the way that I like it. I don't like it too sweet, but that's totally up to you. I let it go longer in the process, the fermenting process, because I like a little more vinegary taste. Now, there's something else I wanted to show you in here, and I'm hoping you can see it. You see that floater in there? You can take that out when you open up your kombucha if you feel like you don't want to swallow that. It's kind of gaggy, and the first time I accidentally swallowed it, I almost, but I realized that that is all part of the goodness and the fermentation process and all the good bacteria that are going on in there, and good for my gut. So actually I swallow it. All right, so that's that. Now we're gonna go ahead, and I turned off the stove. My water has boiled, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add the sugar. Now, you're gonna have to be careful when you add the sugar, because you're gonna notice what it does. Just a tiny little bit creates a frothy, bubbly reaction. So once that water has gotten used to the sugar that's going in there, then you can plop the rest in there. So I just wanted to give you a little heads up about that. Don't plop it all in at one time, or you'll have a big mess because it'll foam all over. So I'm going to mix that up. I'm going to make sure that that gets totally dissolved. And then I'm going to add my 8 bags of tea. This is gonna sit overnight on my stove with no heat, and then by tomorrow, it's going to be room temperature. The other thing that you have to make sure that you have that is also room temperature is your starter. I keep mine in the refrigerator with my other kombucha, but this starter has to be room temperature, has to be the same temperature as this brewed tea. Now I'm putting the 8 bags in here. And your scoby, which isn't in the refrigerator anyway. You're supposed to have that in a dark area, in a pantry, in a closet somewhere for it to just hang out until you need it. So this is really simple to get this started. The only thing you need is a scoby. So you can either get some from a friend, get a piece, or you can make your own. And maybe I'll do a video on how to make a scoby. But you can put the word out on the street. Anybody have a scoby to share? Because those of us who make kombucha, we tend to get scobies that grow, and we don't need the thick pieces. So I bet you can find one out there. All right, so tomorrow, when this is all brewed up and it's room temperature, then I'll show you what to do next. And if you notice anything different about me, because I videotaped the second half of making kombucha when my hair was longer. So who knows what outfit I had on. Hopefully I'm somewhat the same. Don't worry though, the quality of the video will still be good. All right, we'll catch you tomorrow when everything's room temperature and we're ready to go to the next step. Bye-bye. Hey there, good morning. Okay, so all night long, my tea bags and sugar and water, after boiling, sat and brewed, and now I've got this at room temperature. My starter has been out all night, so that is room temperature, and my scoby in our scoby hotel has been out as well. I sterilized my spoon, which I'm going to get the scoby out with, and I already sterilized my jar, which was just in boiling water. Washed my hands and we're good to go. So now what I need to do is I need to get all of the tea bags out of this brew and make sure that you count 8 of them, because 8 went in and 8 better come out. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and because my hands are clean, 5, I'm gonna give them a good squeeze and get all of the tea out of them as well. 6, 7, all right, I've got one more floating around in there somewhere. We definitely don't want that in our kombucha. And you wanna be super careful too, because you certainly don't wanna bust any of these bags. That would be bad. You don't want loose tea leaves around. Oh gosh, where is that 8th one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, no, there's one more in there. Oh, here it is. I feel it. Okay, good. All right, so that's good. Now I'm going to squeeze these and get the extra juice or tea out of that without busting it. Don't need that anymore. Get rid of that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully, and I usually do this over the kitchen sink, but since I'm here, wish me luck. All right, we're going to pour this in here. Oh, not too bad. And let's see how high this is going to go. All right. So I'm going to leave a little bit in the... Oh, I made a little bit of a mess. I'm going to leave a little bit in the pot because I want to make sure that I have enough room for my 2 cups of starter and the scoby. So again, look at the bottom. You see all that goodness on the bottom? You want to make sure that you get all of that in there because those microorganisms are what's going to help get this thing fermenting. So be careful when you open it because as you can see, we have a little bit of bubbling going on because it is activated. Oh, nice. All right, so I'm going to pour that in here. Remember, they're all the same room temperature. And it's important that you get the 2 cups of this in. You can hold back a little bit on the tea, but you've got to get the 2 cups of the starter in there. So now you can see there's about an inch space between where the liquid is at and the top. And that's about how much room you want. All right, so now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to dig for a SCOBY. Now I've got enough SCOBYs in here for probably 5 or 6 batches. So I'm going to pick out one that I'm thinking is looking pretty good. And you don't need too big of a piece. They don't look really attractive, but they certainly do the job. They do what I want them to do. Ooh, this is a good one on the top. Okay, so I'm going to pull this guy out. And I might even have a little bit of stuff on the bottom. I might pull that off. But yeah, that's your SCOBY, folks. Doesn't that look like a great science experiment? My hands are clean, remember. You don't want to have tainted hands in here at all. All right, and I'm going to lay that carefully on the top. And it should float to the top. And you want to be super careful with that because the reason why you want to have room temperature everything is so you don't kill the SCOBY, because it's a very live and active organism in there. All right, so now I think I have a little bit more room to carefully put the rest of this tea. All right, not quite enough, but that's okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this with a cheesecloth. Remember, you can use either cheesecloth or you can use a coffee filter. Cover it with a rubber band, and then you're going to want to put this someplace where it can sit, either in a dark place, or what I do is I just put it right over here behind my stove, and I cover it with a dark green pillowcase and wrap it up, and then I put the date on it. So this is going to sit here for 6 to 10 days. And again, I like it more towards the 10 days. And then after that, and you can try it along the way to see if you like the sweetness or the tartness. And then after that is when you're going to bottle, and that'll be my next video. So I'm going to give you a link right now. It is tea logged, as you can see, because I had a little bit of a spill. But this is the link that I want you to go to, and it is going to give you all the directions for making kombucha, and it's going to even start off by giving you the directions on how to make your own SCOBY. So there's about 3 or 4 pages, and it's a great site. So it's live-eat-learn.com/the-simple-guide-to-kick-ass-kombucha. And I have been using their directions for a very, very long time. And I think that you'll find more information here, which would be very beneficial for you. I started typing everything up, and it was getting to be way too long. And I thought, you know what, it's probably better that you just go to the website. So this bad boy is going to sit now for 6 to 10 days. Me personally, is going to be more at the 10-day mark. And then I will do the next step, which will be bottling your kombucha. All right, I hope you enjoyed this part of making kombucha, and get your SCOBY ready for making your own. You have a good one. Bye-bye. Okay, I just wanted to show you how I have my gallon of kombucha set up, because it's important that if you're going to leave it on your counter that you definitely wrap it up in something dark. So if you take a look at what I have here, is I have it wrapped up in this dark, and it just happens to be a pillowcase. But notice that I have the top of this where the cheesecloth, or if you choose to use a coffee filter is allowing air to come in, because you want to have all the microorganisms that float around in the air, you want them to be a part of the fermentation process. It's very important, because these little microorganisms that are floating around in our air are what some of these organisms in the drink itself are feeding off of. So that's a good thing. So allow air to come in and out through that cheesecloth, and then after 6 to 10 days, don't forget to label it with a date and 6 to 10 days. Then you are going to do the next step. All right, we'll catch you when we're ready for that. Bye-bye. Okay, so now we're back, and this is the next stage of making kombucha. Our gallon of kombucha has been sitting now for 6 to 10 days. I like to let it sit all the way to the nth hour, the 10th day, because I happen to like it a little bit more vinegary than sweet. But if you like your kombucha sweeter, then go with the lower end and only have it sit maybe for 6 days, and you might want to add a little bit more sugar. So my kombucha now is ready to be unveiled after sitting and fermenting. So my 1 gallon is going to make 8 containers of kombucha, one of which has to be the starter. So you're really only getting 7 of them. So I'm going to put this off to the side for a minute, because what I have to do now is I have to sterilize with boiling water these bottles. And anything else that touches your kombucha, you want to make sure is sterile. Sterilized. All right, I've got to have my gloves on because this is way too hot for me. So I'm going to give them a soaking, and I'm going to sterilize all of them. I'm going to sterilize the spoon that I'm going to use to take the scoby out. I'm going to sterilize the funnel that I'm going to use when I'm pouring the kombucha into each of the receptacles, and get this thing all ready for packaging. Okay, so I have all of my bottles sterilized, and I even sterilized the tops as well. Now you have to be kind of careful. I'm actually enjoying these kinds of bottles more and more as I'm making this kombucha on a regular basis, because I love this pop top idea. But these bottles here came from store-bought kombucha, and they've worked really well for a long time. I just have noticed that the plastic seal on the inside, sometimes if you put it in that hot water, it tends to fold up a little bit and get compromised, and then you might not get a really good seal. So if that's the case and this is compromised, just put a piece of saran wrap over the bottle and then put the screw top on and give it a good tight fit, and then that should seal. I also have another bottle here that I think I had vinegar in it one time. You know, my reuse, reduce, recycle, repurpose. Well, that's what I'm doing with this one. And I also have this blue tinted one, which tends to keep out a lot of the sun. So there are a variety of bottles that you can use, whatever works for you. But just know that you're going to need about 8 of them, and one of them needs to be saved for the starter for the next batch. So now I have my gallon of kombucha sitting in my sink. I like to do it over my sink in case I have any spills. You know how that goes. And I want to share with you that the scoby that is sitting on the top of there is going to go back into my scoby house, because this is where my guys live. I happen to have several scobies because I got one from a friend, and then I made one, and then I made another one because I didn't think the one was alive, but it was. It's amazing. These things are really hardy. They can live through all kinds of trauma. Unbelievable. So this is called my scoby hotel. So I'm going to take, after sterilizing my spoon, I'm going to take the scoby off of the top of my gallon, and I'm going to put it back in the hotel so it can sit there until I need it the next time. So you have to be pretty careful with these, because sometimes they come apart in pieces. Oh yeah, look at that. Doesn't that look lovely? That's the scoby, folks. Let me see if I can get a little closer without dripping too much on my floor. Ooh, yeah, doesn't that look inviting? So that scoby is alive, and that is what you need to make your kombucha. Now, I don't like some of what that looks like on the bottom, so I might scrape some of that off and get rid of it because I do like the top part of it. That looked like it was really healthy. Now, you can share these scobies with other people too. All it takes is a piece to get going on it, and you can get one of these for a batch of kombucha for somebody else. And then there's also a way you can make your own scoby as well. So I'm going to put this off to the side, and I'm actually, well, before I do that, I'm going to put a little bit more liquid in here because I want to make sure that these things are always submerged. So those things are going to go away now. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to fill my bottles. What do I need to put in each of my bottles? Well, here is my sterilized funnel. And first of all, sorry about that, I was too far away. First of all, in each of the bottles, except for the starter, you're going to want to put a half of a teaspoon of sugar. Now, I like to use organic granulated cane sugar, but I just also bought this as well, and I'm going to try this one this time. So whatever kind of sugar, it could be white sugar, it could be honey, you can put in agave, any sort of sweetener. I only put in a half a teaspoon, and this is what the microorganisms inside your kombucha are going to feed off of this sugar. It's the coolest thing ever. So I just put my funnel up here, and I go ahead and I add in a half of a teaspoon to every one of these jars except my starter. The starter is going to be separate. So let me go ahead and fill those, and then I'll talk about the next thing we do. Okay, now the next thing that I put in there is chopped up ginger. You know that candy ginger that you can find in the store that's covered with sugar? You can find chunks like that, or sometimes you can also find discs. If I can get my little disc out of here. Come on, baby, you can do it. Oh my gosh, it's totally stuck at the bottom. All right, more than one way to skin a cat. Okay, here we go. You can buy them like discs. So I cut these things up and I put in little chunks in each of my jars. Why do I do that? Because I love ginger and I love ginger kombucha. So I like to add not only 3 or 4 chunks to the sugar that I already added in there, but then after that, I'm going to also put in some essential oils because I want even more additional flavors in here as well. But this is what I'm going to do for right now because we're going to get ready to bottle pretty soon, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So let me wrap this one up. So one more thing I wanted to mention to you, if you're not crazy about ginger, here's another option. You can crunch up little pieces of peppermint, or if you feel like putting in butterscotch, or if you feel like putting in some of these root beer hard candies. So just something that those microorganisms can feed off of, the sugars in addition to the little bit of sugar that I put in there. You can experiment with all kinds of things and see if you get some flavors in there. How about a Jolly Rancher? Hey, why not? That's the beautiful thing about these DIY projects is you get to experiment. Okay, so I got myself a nice ladle that I already sterilized, and I'm going to get ready now to start bottling. I've got myself 3 different kinds of essential oils that I like to use. One is ginger. Of course, I love more ginger. And so I'm going to be putting in 1 drop of ginger into each bottle, except for the starter. The starter is just the plain kombucha that has been fermenting. The other ones I might have lemon. I'll put a couple drops of lemon with ginger, and then maybe I'll have a ginger and wild orange. So I like to mix it up a little bit. I've tried peppermint and I wasn't crazy about it, but maybe you'll like it. And there are some other things that you can put in as well. You can put in pieces of fruit juice, pulped, I don't know, maybe mashed up fruit you can put in. People have also put in chia seeds. I'm not crazy about those things sticking in my teeth, so I don't put those chia seeds in there. But I do stick with my true and tried essential oils. So each one of these bottles is going to get 1 drop of ginger, and then I'm going to decide half of them will be lemon, and I'll put in 2 or 3 drops of lemon, and then the rest of them I'm going to put in 2 or 3 drops of the wild orange. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get our, oops-a-daisy, hold on. Doesn't that always happen? I always forget something. I went ahead and I put my funnel away, and I still need it. All right, so now I'm gonna mix this up a little bit because sometimes at the bottom you get some settling. But I wanna get out a jar full of my starter. So I'm gonna be filling this up. And I'm gonna be putting that one off to the side because you need that the next time you make a gallon of your kombucha. And round you go. All right, so this is equivalent to about 2 cups. All right, so I've got that one settled. That's gonna go there. I already sterilized the lid. I'm gonna give that a good tight turn, and that goes off to the side because when these things get bottled up, they're gonna have to sit for another chunk of time. About 3 to 6 days, I think. So the first batch, the gallon, is 6 to 10 days. And then, depending again on how sweet or how vinegary you like it, you will go about 3 to 6, 3 to 7 days. The fewer days, the sweeter it gets. The longer it ferments, the more sugar is being consumed by the microorganisms inside that kombucha. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill these bottles, and I'm going to give each of them some essential oils because I know that these essential oils are healthy and good because they have on here supplemental fat sticky on there, which means they can be consumed. If your essential oils do not have this supplemental fat, they are not to be ingested. They can only be put on topically or diffused. Otherwise, they're safe to consume. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill these, and I'm going to get them all covered, and then I'll show you what we do next. Okay, so I'm filling the last of my bottles up, and as you notice, I'm at the bottom of my gallon. I'm going to give that a good swirl because there's some goodness that's laying in the bottom of that. You don't want to throw that away. So I want to make sure that that's getting into all of my bottles. Alrighty, let's see. Any more? All right, I'm going to put some more in this one just to top it off a little, and this one as well. All right, perfect. Got all that done. Now I'm ready to put in my essential oils. I'm going to put in 1 drop in each of these bottles. If you get in 2, that's fine also. Just depends on how much ginger you like. And now I'm going to choose probably 3 or 4 of them I'm going to do in lemon. So I'm going to get 3 drops of lemon, 2 or 3, doesn't matter. Depends on how strong you like it. I happen to like the wild orange a little bit better. So I may put in 3 of the wild orange in the last 3 that I have here. Now these are ready to be sealed. Signed, sealed, and delivered. We're going to seal all these things, and then we're going to gather them all up and put them in a space where ideally, if you can have about, I don't know, 70, 75 degrees in your house or in an area where these guys can sit wrapped up, that's great. My house is never that warm, believe me, and my kombucha just turns out beautifully. So my house is usually between, I don't know, 60 and 70 degrees, more along the line 65, 66, and they do wonderfully. And maybe that's why I ferment them a little bit longer so they can do their thing. So I'm going to finish sealing these, and then I'm going to take them to the spot where I let them sit, and I'm going to show you how I wrap it up. Alrighty, so while you're bottling, don't forget to label your bottles because you want to make sure that you have put off to the side your 2 cups of starter, and you don't want to have any flavoring in that one at all. The other bottles, I went ahead and I labeled wild, orange, and ginger, and I've got my lemon and ginger all labeled. Sometimes, you know, when you get yourself involved in a project, you forget about some of the fine details, and then you don't know what you're drinking, and it's just a crapshoot. But you know what? Sometimes that's fun too. But if you want to know what you're drinking, make sure that you label ahead of time. Remember, the starter, that's the one that is the most important. Alrighty, so now our kombucha, after it has been bottled and labeled, now has to sit. I have my date on here, and look at this. It has to sit for another 3 to 10 days. I happen to like it a little bit more with a bite to it, so a little bit more vinegary, so I'm gonna let it sit more for the 10-day period. This is where you have to wrap this thing up, get it nice and dark. Go ahead and get yourself a pillowcase. Why not? That'll work. Anything that'll create a dark space for your kombucha to sit and ferment some more. Make sure you put the date on there so you don't forget. Give it a good clip and then ignore it. Ignore it for 3 to 10 days. And then after that, you're going to take your kombucha and you are going to put it in the refrigerator and enjoy for however long it takes for you to finish that up. Pop a top, take a swig, and enjoy your DIY project of making your homemade kombucha. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to you coming back to watching more of my videos. Haven't you learned something today? Alrighty, ta-ta for now.